Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Congregation Beit Tikva, the House of Hope. We're so happy that you're with us for this Sabbath service. Welcome to our Cantor Ephraim Herrera, and our flautist, clarinetist, Dankoff, and of course, Lela, who is recording this beautiful service. So we're going to begin with a traditional melody, Yedid Nefesh. The words are on page 636 in your Siddur, 636. Our cantor is going to sing a different arrangement for this Sabbath service. Yedid Nefesh, Avarachaban, Meshocha Lecha, El Retzonecha, Yarutz Avdecha, Kemo Ayal, Ishtachavel Mul Hadarecha, Yerav Lo, Yedidotecha, Minof Tzuf Vechol Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Ayal, Ishtachavel Mul Hadarecha, Yerav Lo, Yedidotecha, Minof Tzuf Vechol We'll continue with another Sabbath melody, Ma Yafeh Hayom, how beautiful is this day. Go back towards the beginning of our prayer book on page 128, on the top of page 128. Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Everyone. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Other time. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. We turn to the blessing over the Shabbat candles. Let's read together. We're in the middle of 121. We'll read together in English and then we'll sing the blessing. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives.
Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need,
all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
So we turn in our Sidurim and let's read a meditation, a beautiful poem together in the middle of 124. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. So we begin now with the Psalms for welcoming Shabbat, Kabbalat Shabbat. We always begin, of course, with Psalm 95, which is affectionately referred to as L'chun Ranana. We're on 130, singing together.
L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, Adonai. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana,
In the middle of 130. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai, raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and land which God's hands fashioned.
Come, let us bow down and kneel,
bend the knee before Adonai our
our
Maker.
Maker. For
Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day. Let's read together, top of page 133 from Psalm 97. Adonai is sovereign, let the earth exult, the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God, righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love Adonai, hate evil. God guards the lives of God's loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked.
Light is shown for the righteous,
radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in Adonai, and acclaim God's holy name. So our cantor will lead us in Psalm 29. The words are on page 136, 137.
Mizmor leDavid, havu l'Adonai, b'nei Elim, havu l'Adonai, kavod va'oz, havu l'Adonai, kavod shemo, ishtachavu l'Adonai, Kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod hirim Adonai al mayim rabim Kol Adonai bakoach Kol Adonai behadar Kol Adonai shover arazim Vaishaber Adonai et harzeh halevanon Vayarkidem kamo egel Levanon Vasirion kamo veremim Kol Adonai chotzev lavodesh Kol Adonai yachil midbar Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh Midbar kadesh
We turn the page and sing one of our favorite Shabbat melodies, Lecha Dodi. We're on 138.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. Lecha dodi, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במשמע תחילה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה,
Please rise if you're able.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה וצהלה, תוך אמוני ים סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך אדוני, לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
We continue on page 144. We're singing together, chanting the Chatzi Kaddish, the half Kaddish.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא תברך חילותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ולחיי וכל בית ישראל. לעולם עלמי עלמי יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתמורם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשו ברכו לעילא מכל ברכתה ושירתה תרוש מחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן.
Let's turn the page. We're on 146. We lift up our voices for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Reading together in the middle of 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzebaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Haravim. The second blessing, Ahavat Olam, page 150. We're reading together in the middle of 150. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Let's sing together the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
So if you're standing, please be seated, be comfortable. We'll continue with the words, the traditional words from V'ahavta, from Deuteronomy chapter 6. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'divarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha v'lechtecha v'derech v'v'shachbecha v'pumecha v'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot bein einecha v'chtatam al mezuzot beitecha v'visharecha l'man tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'lohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hoseti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lechem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem emet. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Press them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments, and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai turn a few pages to the words of Mi Chamocha from the middle of chapter 15 in Exodus. We're on 158 in our Siddur, page 158. So we come to the beautiful blessing, the Hashkivenu. We're on page 160. This Hashkivenu for Shabbat tells us about the spreading of the divine sukkah, so to speak, the covering the cloud which envelops us on Shabbat. It is a sukkah of peace, and it is an intimation of the messianic time, reminding us that God will protect us through all.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'aminenu malkeinu lechaim.
We turn to the words of Vishamru.
Yismechu today.
So take a look in the middle of 162, you'll see the words Yismechu v'malchutcha, 24 Hebrew words to remind us of the 24 hours of the Sabbath.
Shabbat,
Please join us now for the tefillah. We begin on page 164. These are the 7 essential blessings for the Sabbath evening service on 164.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yadi tehilalecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, העליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקורא הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר מושיע ומגן. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah. Atah gibor leolam Adonai, mechaye hakol ata Rav lehoshia. Mechalkei chayim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. סומך נופלים ברופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך ועל גבורות, ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל.
The third blessing, let's read together, top of page 171. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Amen.
If you're standing, you may be seated now after the third blessing. So let's read together an English version of the Ritzei. We're on the top of page 175. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha yirah na'avod. And the blessing of thanksgiving, called the Modim. Let's read together also on 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai,
Hatov shimcha
Lecha na'er lehodot. Amen. The seventh blessing, Shalom Rav, is we're going to hear a special singing of this blessing by our dear friend Norton Bicoll, Zichrono Livracha, who was cantor for us and for many congregations over the years, and singing this version with the choir from Temple Emmanuel in Dallas. Let's take a few moments for our own personal meditations and prayers. Before we continue with the drash on the Torah, on Parshat Shmini, let's think of our family members, our loved ones and friends, congregants here and all over the country in need of spiritual healing, physical healing, and strengthening on this Shabbat. We think of Cantor Ephraim's father, Eliodoro Herrera, David Mattis, Doreen Herdig, Lynn Kelly, Flo Vinnick, Arlene Vinnick. We also think of Jim Taylor, Leela's husband, and John Dawkins, your dear brother. And also we're thinking of Kate Shane and Casey Cantor. So we're singing together with our Cantor, page 371, Misha Berach. 371. This Shabbat, Parshat Shmini, which means the 8th, really begins with the 7-day ordination ceremony that marks the investiture of Aaron and his sons into the priesthood. At the end of this ordination process, Moses hands over the authority for making the sacrifices, for offering all of these sacrifices that are required to Aaron and to the Kohanim. And interestingly, it tells us that there's really a repetition. There's 2 distinct sacrifices that have to be made. One is for Aaron and all the people, and a second sacrifice, what you and I would call a prayer, a solemn prayer, is offered simply for the people. And the simple answer, the simple response to why the seeming repetition of these offerings, these sacrifices, is before Aaron can properly offer anything up on behalf of the congregation, he has to clean himself up. He has to purify himself as the high priest in order to be worthy of making offerings on behalf of the Jewish people. I think that applies to you and I as well. But I don't want to talk about sacrifices. I don't want to talk about the laws of kashrut, which are extensively explained little by little in chapter 11 of this Torah portion. There's many incredible stories in this Torah portion. I want to remind us all that yesterday, Thursday, was Yom Hashoah, this 27th day of the month of Nisan. And the Israeli government in the 1950s ordained, so to speak, that the 27th of Nisan would be a day of memorial for those lost during the Holocaust, the Shoah, as well as those lost during the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. So why is it so important for us to remember and designate a solemn day of mourning for those we have lost? It gives us a time to reflect. It gives us a time to remember, to even consider what would the world have been like if more than 6 million Jews had been able to live. How different our civilization might have been. What would have been the course of history? Would the state of Israel have been created in 1948? On a very sad note, it reminds us that during World War II, we lost more than 1 million Jewish children who were exterminated in the camps in Poland. 1 million children murdered. Generations and generations lost to us. It also reminds us about the heroism and the courage of our people in Europe. So many people fought back. There were tremendous uprisings in the ghettos, the most notable being the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. But there were uprisings as well in Sobibor and in Treblinka, in some of the camps. Many, many Jews were killed because of those uprisings, because of course it was impossible really to escape from the death camps. I think it also reminds us about accountability, not just back then, but it reminds us of what it does mean to be accountable today in the year 2021. Let me just give you an example of accountability. A little over a year ago, the heirs of the Albert Reimann Jr. family from Germany, which is in fact one of the largest business empires in all of Europe, they made apology to the German people and to the Jewish world. In fact, for some 70 years after the Holocaust, the Reimanns never acknowledged their grandparents and their fathers' complicit actions and support of the Nazi regime in the 30s and 40s. But the new generation stood up publicly in Germany at the end of 2019 and said, our grandfather, our father who died in 1984, they should all have been put to jail. They should have been put away for the rest of their lives. So how did this striking apology come about? What happened to the Reimann family that they suddenly, so to speak, woke up and realized something was wrong with their forebears? It turns out that we know the Reimann family because, among other things, they invented Lysol, one of the most generic products that we have in our store shelves. But the grandfather, Mr. Reimann Sr., in the 1930s, was an ardent supporter of Hitler. They donated to the party, they displayed the Nazi banners in their factories. They were unconditional followers of the Nazi party, as was told to Heinrich Himmler, Yimach Shemo. And this generation continued through the war effort to support the Nazis. In the 70s and the early 80s, a whole new generation of Reimanns, the great-grandchildren and great-grandchildren, started looking into the family past to figure out what was the Reimann family doing. And they found out not only what they were doing, but they found out how ashamed they were, how guilty these generations were, that they were, and they were the, not only the forebears, they were the new generation reaping the financial benefits. But by the way, the Reimanns, I didn't know this, but let me tell you what the Reimanns own, among other things. Keurig coffee, Dr. Pepper, Snapple, Caribou coffee, Panera bread, Krispy Kreme donuts, and they just bought, not so long ago, Einstein bagels. So among other major companies here in the States, they are a significant presence in the food empire, not only here, but in Germany. These people are billionaires, and it is certainly admirable for them to stand up and be accountable for their forebears, for their earlier generations. And yet it took them a long time, because you and I know, having read much about the history of the last 6 decades, that most of the big German companies such as Krupp and Thyssen and so forth, these companies acknowledged finally in the early 90s their complicity and their guilt in terms of aiding and abetting the Nazi regime. So it took literally a whole generation of great-grandchildren to figure out what had happened to the Reimann family and what was wrong with their family. That to me is a lesson that we have to incorporate into our own consciousness and say accountability is every year. Every year we have to look back and think about not only what certain people did, but what we did. We have to be accountable in the sense that we have to look at President Roosevelt and ask, did he do enough to save Jews? There are many conflicting opinions about that. We have to ask ourselves today, in America, are we accountable for all the madnesses and the problems that we have in our own society that are manifest? Just in the most mundane sense, are we not accountable for the gun violence and the prevalence of shootings and murders constantly because too many people are given access to buy guns without any proper investigation or period of grace before such a purchase can be made? We're all accountable. We all have to stand up and deal with the ethical problems that we have in our lives, in our country, in Jewish history. Yom Hashoah reminds us what we've been through, but also how we've succeeded in surviving atrocities and rebuilding civilizations, literally rebuilding our whole family structure for the future. So it is a very sad day, but in a way, when I think of it, and as we commemorated it the other night through the auspices of the Jewish Federation here in town, to me it's a symbol of hope that the Jewish people, the Jewish civilization will continue and flourish and grow and strive towards greater things for the future. Let me just share with you this poem as we remember on this Sabbath. From Rabbi Leo Beck, as you know, was the leader of the Berlin Jewish community for many, many years, and went into the camps with his own people from Berlin. I think continually of those who were really great, who from birth remembered the soul's antiquity through endless corridors of light, never to forget the delight of breath drawn from ageless springs. Near the snow, near the sun, in the tallest fields, see how our people are celebrated by the waving grass and by the streamers of white clouds, and whispers of wind in the listening sky, the names of all who in their lives fought for life, who wore in their hearts the fire's center born of the sun. They traveled a short while towards the sun and left the vivid air signed with their honor. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Rabbi. Mi Ha'ish.
Our cantor is going to sing for us Mi Ha'ish, a special melody in memory of our dear friend, Dr. Norton Bicoll.
Mi Ha'ish talks about who is the man, who is the one who is eager for life, who desires years of good fortune. Guard your tongue from evil, your lips from deceitful speech. Shun evil and do good, seek integrity and pursue it. This is for Norton Bicoll, and we miss him dearly. He and I shared the same birthday this past Friday, April 5th, past Monday, April 5th. And so this is for him.
Please join us for Torah study tomorrow morning, 9:30 on Zoom. We look forward to a beautiful Shabbat and a good week ahead. If you have any items or short articles for our Beit Tikva newsletter, please send them in right away, immediately, in the next few days, because we'll be working on that in the coming week, so that we'll have a new newsletter going out for the late spring months. Thank you again to Cantor Ephraim, to Wendy for the gorgeous music, and to Lela for recording this service. We're on page 586. 586 are the words of Aleinu. If you're able, please stand up and sing with us. Bottom of the page, 586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה לעוצר ראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני
למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
At this time, before the mourner's Kaddish, we think of our loved ones, our own family, whom death has recently taken from us. And we remember all those who have died at this season in years past, those whom we have drawn into our hearts as our very own. May their memories always be a blessing to us. Yichronam libracha. Let us remember them. Let us cherish their souls. During Shloshim, we remember on the Shabbat Eleanor Rapp Ragust. And during the Sabbath, as this coming week, we recall the yard sites of beloved family members. We remember now Maurice Dutch Bernstein, uncle of Rob Bernstein, Rebecca Eve Dickstein, mother-in-law of Susan Crone, Dorothy Kurland, aunt of Joan Kessler, Frances Lewis, mother of Henry Lewis, Sally Siriani, sister of Connie Rosenberg. And we remember also Edwin Fields, dear friend of my family. May their memories always be a blessing to us. Together on 598, we say the Kaddish, page 598. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rama, v'yalmad yivrach chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv, v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rama v'morach, le'alam almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי בקודשה בריך הוא לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירם בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, והוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. The words for the Kiddush, or the sanctification of the Sabbath day, are on page 123. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה ושמר קדשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר לציית מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קדשך לאהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Have a beautiful Sabbath.
L'chaim Tovim.